It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
If you're someone who lives in an area where it's so expensive to buy real estate and you feel like it's impossible, then I have something for you. I just released a free guide that's going to give you the 8 steps you need to take to buy your first out-of-state property. I bought several properties out of state, living in California, investing in Ohio, and you could do the same. It's just a matter of having the right information. So click the link in the description of this episode to get your free guide today. You mentioned when you found the deal in New York, you didn't have the capital, but you went to these networking events and you were able to find a partner. And there's one key that you mentioned. You were willing to give up 50% equity since you had a capital partner who was able to pay for the rehab and all that stuff before it's sold. Most people don't want to share anything. Most people don't want to split anything. So at that early stage, like, what was it for you that gave you the foresight, like, hey, you know what? I can still make something if I partner with somebody who can provide the capital.
That's a great question. And it boils down to mentorship, right? Because originally I didn't want to give up 50% equity. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I found a deal. I'm like, I could make $1 million. I don't want to give nobody anything of what I work for. But my mentor who connected me to the capital partner, she kept telling me, in real estate, if you really want to go far, you cannot worry about what other people's making. You cannot worry about other people's pockets. You just need to know what you bring to the table and what you can get on a return by bringing what you have to the table, right? And that's really what helped me understand. If I didn't have the hurt in my ear, that mentor, I probably would have just, ran straight to the ground, to be honest with you.
Definitely. And it also sounds like over the years prior to the shift to the storage facility, you were able to also scale your portfolio.
Yes.
Was that within New York City?
No, so I actually went upstate New York, Albany. So that's where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school SUNY Albany, upstate New York. And I went to buy some properties out that way. And then I went out to Pennsylvania, Milwaukee. I started spreading out because I could get more bang for my buck out of town, out of state. I just used New York City as my hub to get started because that's who I was born and raised.
Got it. That makes sense. And it sounds like you did have a turning point. You mentioned, you were able to expand your portfolio and you just ran into a situation where you weren't getting the rents that you were before the pandemic. And again, a lot of people would not have been willing to sell. As a matter of fact, some people don't think you should ever sell real estate. So I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that and your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So I didn't want to sell. My original thought process was to hold my properties for long-term purposes, cash flow, get the benefits that way. But we had to be prepared for the real estate cycles, right? We know that things happen, and every couple of years we're going to see things that we need to adapt. And I seen that at that time, I was able to make 2 and 3 times more than what I paid for a property. Why not sell it so I can take my profits and reinvest into something different? And that's exactly what I did. If I didn't sell my properties, I wouldn't have had the capital to go and buy a self-storage facility and continue to build in a different segment of real estate.
Love it. That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, sometimes, to your point, you got to know when to pivot, and it can be to our detriment to be so stubborn to not recognize like when it's time to, make a move and do something else. And I think the important thing you mentioned is taking the money and reinvesting it into somewhere else. I mean, the majority of people will just take that money and go to Vegas or go to the Bahamas or something, and just waste it on liabilities. But it sounded like you had the foresight to move the money to something else that can generate income. Yeah.
So I've always been a forward thinker. Even since I was younger, playing basketball, rapping, I always think what's next for me. I'm the type of person, I get bored really fast. So if something is not like serving me, I gotta find something new, right? It could be a gift and a curse because I'm always doing something else, but I've always been a forward thinker. Love it.
All right, so storage facility. Let's break down just that first deal. Like you had the light bulb moment. You had a tenant who needed storage. You couldn't find anything, and you're like, all right, I need to get into this. What did that look like trying to get into it after having attended that mastermind and just trying to get the ball rolling?
What's funny is most people think this hard. It's actually easier to buy a self-storage facility than a single family house, right? It's actually an easier process because the lender, specifically the SBA, is not looking at you as a person, right? When you're buying commercial real estate, they're looking at the asset. They're looking at the facility, the property. Is this facility bringing in enough income to cover the debt on this facility, right? And I used a vehicle called the SBA 7A loan, which is specifically designed for self-storage investors. So if you're a newbie investor, they will qualify you up to 90%. So I only needed to come to the table with 10% down. So that's really, that was a beautiful thing. And I wouldn't have known this if I didn't pay $25,000 to go to a mentorship, to go to a mastermind. So that also made the process easier by having the resources and information and people around me to say, hey, here go the contacts, right? Here's who you reach out to. This is what the process looks like. And when I found this facility on LoopNet, so I just went on LoopNet, found the facility, found the broker. The broker ended up bringing all the information, the tax returns, the P&Ls, all the different financial reports that the lender requests. The broker was able to provide it to me. So it was a pretty much simple process. And I came to the table with a little under $100,000. And I was able to, just roll that money over from the profits of me selling off my assets, a few of my properties.
Got you. So SBS, Small Business Administration, right?
Yes.
Got you. So when you were looking at this particular storage facility, what are the numbers that you're analyzing? Because obviously, with residential, you're looking at cash flow, mortgage, tax, insurance, whatever. What does that look like on the self-storage side?
It's the same approach, it's just that it's a different product, right? But you still want to look at it as a business. So one of the things I'm always going to look at is called my cash on cash return. So how much return do I have on the money that I'm putting out? Me personally, I like to have a 20% cash on cash return, which means I want to make at the money that I put out, I want to make it back within 5 years, at least the money that I put out of my own pocket, right? So that's number one. I want to see what is my cash on cash return. Number two, I want to look at the supply index. So a supply index will determine if a facility has a demand or not, because I can buy a facility in an area that's dying where there's nobody even renting out units. But if I buy a facility, for example, Florida is a booming market because so many people from up north is moving down in because it's cheaper living, no taxes and stuff like that. So the population is increasing. Self-storage facilities are being developed all over Florida because the population is increasing. As people are moving, they need a place to store their items. So what I'm going to do to get that supply index, I'll get a facility within a 5-mile radius, and I will get how many units is available. I mean, how many total units within that 5-mile radius, right? Once I get that total amount of units, let's say it's 1,000 units, I'm now going to divide that by the total population within that 5-mile radius. And when I divide that number, it should be 7% or below. If it's 7% or below, then I'm interested in buying. If it's 7% or above, that means I probably don't want to touch it because if I buy it, it's not a demand. Like, where's the people? Where's the schools? Where's the institutions, right? I want to know what businesses are growing or happening or developing around the self-storage facility.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you shouldn't just find, see one on LoopNet or whatever you're finding and call and try to make an offer. It's important to do the market research. It's important to, look at the data, the cash flow percentages, all those things before you even try to make an offer.
Correct. Yeah, because you'll buy a bad asset, so you want to make sure the numbers make sense. You want to do the market research to understand, is there a demand? You also want to look at the median income, right? If this is a low poverty, type of area, if I can't afford my rent where I'm staying and laying my head, what's the likelihood of me affording to pay for a storage unit, right? Like, you got to think about it. So these are the things we want to focus on and understand. So the market research is so important because you will buy something that, don't make sense and then you stuck with an asset that you got debt on.
What's up, y'all? Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Thank you so much for watching another episode. Definitely take a moment to subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Also, visit our website, blackrealestatedialogue.com, and follow on Instagram @Black Real Estate Dialogue. Talk to you soon.